Everybody on with us? All right, let's dive right in. So, those of you that have been with us one or more times over the last couple of months, thank you first and foremost, but also then you know that what we've been doing is talking about strategies, 6 of them, going through 4 webinars, and the focus is on how do we help you have a successful year. In our final, I'm almost got a little tear in my eye. Seriously, this has been a lot of fun with you guys. But in our final one, we're going to focus on 5 ideas to make your chapter shine. Our goal here, and I brought Peter in. Peter works right next to me, and if you could see, if I turn the camera, you could see our fish tank that keeps us in between. There's the fish tank. There's Peggy. We are a crazy team that absolutely loves chapter organizations, really feel like chapters are the feet on the street. And we are actually home, as many of you have heard me say, to 3 sort of chapter-based organizations where we serve as our management office. And that's where we have a lot of our experience that we draw from. And I brought Peter on because I want for us to have a little bit of a quick fire conversation in which we're going to talk about 5 very practical ideas. Now, these are ideas. These are not strategies. These are not big. The last 3 webinars, we've been really talking about strategy with some, tactics in it. But now we really want to talk about 5 things that we think you could pick one of these and maybe twist it to shape your own chapter and get it done. So part of what we want to do is give you those 5 ideas. Now, as we get involved in the conversation, I want to take us back to an earlier conversation we had, because it's really important that we understand that the way you're going to make your chapter shine is completely around your ability to be engaging. In fact, the thing that we talked about back in the first webinar, and we talked a great deal in Columbus, was this whole idea of people come to be engaged. We have this notion that people join an organization and a chapter so that they can get the list of goodies. And really, it's not. It's so they can have relationships. And actually, back in Columbus, and we talked about this a little bit in another webinar, was we said, well, what does that mean to be engaging? And we talked about how the definition of engagement has changed. It's evolved a bit. Now, you guys recognize the first one, which is event attendance, right? So most of us do some kind of an event, and we grab people, we pull people into the room. That's pretty typical. And the second is activity participation. Now, what I did was I grabbed the WSDHA Lobby Day from 2018, and you guys have just finished a lot of lobby days, and you've had some really great successes I've been able to see in looking at your Facebook pages recently. But it's being able to get people to rally around a particular issue, right? And that's something that we kind of do a lot. And of course, volunteering. This is a picture of the South Carolina DHA at their strategy retreat about, I think, 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. And certainly we understand that there's board service. But when we really take a look at engagement and look at it through the eyes of the rank and file member, we have to expand this definition to include community building. This is just a shot of something that we do here for PRSA Maryland, which are called coffee whips. And they're very informal, no charge to members. You meet at a member's office and you have a conversation around a topic. And it's limited to about 8 people. I think the largest one we had, because the space allowed us, was 12. But it's a really small opportunity for people to get together, to spend an hour on their way to work and just kind of meet other people in their space. But community building is a really important way of doing engagement. It's not always about coming to a big event or doing a lobby day or being on the board. The second is understanding there's a fair amount of people who want to connect with us virtually. They just want to be involved from their desk or from their phone, right? And so social media engagement is really important. And I'm going to show a couple of things I grabbed from a couple of your Facebook pages of recent, because you guys have been doing some really cool stuff. The question is, can we ramp it up? And I think, to me, the 6th way of understanding engagement is that there is a cadre of people who are looking at you to be just kind of a source of information or news that's relevant to them, that kind of reading person. The person that's going to go to your website and check things out, or going to get your newsletter and take a look at it. So if we want to be shining, if we want to shine as chapters, we have to embrace all these levels of engagement, right? And it all ties to something that we talked about in a previous webinar, which was the engagement continuum. Now, I'm revisiting this because the 5 elements that the 5 items that we're going to share with you are all things that connect back to this definition of engagement and this engagement continuum. But I just wanted to show you this again. So you kind of had we're all sort of on the same page, if you will. The engagement continuum says that people are going to be consumers at one end, right? They're just going to be taking in what you're offering. They might come to an event or an activity, but they're about connecting with you on a pretty in an information-based. I want some effective practices. I want to know who else is in the community way, right? They shift to promoting when we give them the opportunity to share what they've learned, to like what they've heard, to find that connection with someone else, and that oftentimes generates something that they can create, which leads them in a role that we might call volunteering with our chapters, and finally into that governing or that board role. So if we look at this in a little bit more detail, and I'm going to pause and just say, remember, we get the slides to you, so you'll be able to see this in case this looks new to you. But basically, we're talking about the way that people are going to kind of dip their toe in. They might get more engaged. If something comes up in their life, i.e., I don't know how many of you have a junior in high school, but if you have a junior in high school, it feels like everything on the outside stops at that point, right? There's so many moving parts. But they can then check out, or as I say in my cycling class when I teach it, they can tap out, and then when they're ready, they can tap back in again. So it's really about embracing the continuum. So the reason why I'm bringing this up again is because the 5 things we're going to talk about are things that are going to help you embrace the consumer, the promoter, the creator, the person who is serving, and all of that will help you build the key governing roles in your chapter. Okay, you with me? You ready for a poll? Because I got to ask you, what have you changed or added to an activity or event to create an experience that draws? Now, this is basically based on this whole idea of, we've talked about this over the last couple of months. Talk to us. What have you changed? Maybe did you get out of the lecture breakout room, do something a little bit different from an educational standpoint? Did you create a smaller event? Remember, size doesn't matter. Did you add some new networking opportunities? Now, we talked quite a bit about the focus on the power of moments. Anybody remember that conversation and how we said create the experience? We also talked a lot about creating conversation. And I just put an other in there, and if you check other, I want to see some chatter on the chat box. I want to know what other things you've done. So we've been talking about this. What have you done to change or add to an activity or event to really create an experience that draws? So you guys are coming in. I'm loving this. And please feel free to get that chat box going to tell us a little more detail as you are pushing this out.
Leanne, if I can join that leadership training program, I'd be happy to do so.
I love that idea. Okay, let me show you. Give you one more second. I see somebody else is coming in. Excellent, excellent. All right. So let me show you what we've got. I love the fact that you guys have done some cool things. A number of you are trying new networking options. So please tell us when. Yes, Julie, offer more food, more attendees. Talk us about the power of moment. The person who said that, let us know. What did you do when you focused on that power of moment? And if you missed that conversation, head back to the webinar archives because you can pick up on that. I love getting out of the lecture breakout room. Tell us more about that and certainly about the others. All right, let's go on. Let's talk about the 5 ways that we think you can shine. I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to tap Peter on the shoulder to tell us about the first one. But let's go through them real quickly. Let's talk the calling tree, put out the welcome sign, draw the picture, create a community, one like at a time, and a virtual happy hour. All righty, Peter.
So it's very often, I find that people, when they're asked to reach out, tend to pick up their keyboard rather than their telephone. And I'm sort of old school in that respect. I like to actually talk to people on the phone. And I find that sending somebody an email can work on occasion, but it doesn't really, somebody's reading what you wrote and they're putting their own tone on whatever those words are. They're not actually hearing your voice. And not only that, there isn't an opportunity to ask clarifying questions. So we always, when we work with our management clients, and any client for that matter, we always say, let's make the telephone call. With one of the groups that I actually manage, I try to call all the members over the course of a couple of years. It takes a lot of time, but there is something about that personal touch that makes a substantial difference relative to the email conversation. And we always tell people, when you make the call, don't call somebody because they haven't renewed. That's the worst telephone call to make, and usually your volunteers will not want to make that call. That's an unpleasant call. We don't want to ask people to make sales calls. We want to ask them to make connection calls. We're trying to build relationships, because really what our associations are all about. They're all about creating relationships and connections between people. So you get a chance to talk to folks and understand what they're looking for. And part of the volunteer development process really depends upon the extent to which you know who your members are, what their interests are, what their passions are, what their skills, knowledge, and experience is, so that you can begin, as volunteer opportunities arise, to really target that opportunity to the individual most qualified and most interested in performing it. So sometimes people are awkward, they're uncomfortable just getting on the phone, so it helps to have, here's some ideas for how we can start a conversation. If any of you have been to a networking program of any sort or other, and they'll talk to you about how do you start the conversation, and how do you get confused about which slide we're supposed to be on. And that can always be really awkward when one is not in control of the clicker.
Yes, I lost my mouse. I'm sorry.
She lost her mouse. Ooh. Anyway, so I think the idea is to give the volunteers who are making these calls some sort of call starters, and that can be very useful to them. But why don't we take a look at another poll here and get a sense of what you're looking for to help your members find their way around the chapter. So if you could take a minute and answer this and see what we hear. And of course, with the other answers, we'd like to hear something in the chat box to get some sense of what happens there. So are you ramping up new member onboarding? And everyone will tell you that it's much easier to get a member to stay once you've got them on board and hung around for a year or two than it is to try to get them back after they've walked away. So that first year call is really, really important. And of course, getting the member profiles helps you understand who they are, what their interests are, and creating an engagement map to get some sense of where people want to go. So Leanne suggested at a networking event, don't tell them who you are, but in 5 words or less what you do.
Oh, that's a good one.
I help people to be healthier. I love that. That's great. So it's that sounds like that business conversation around that was had with one of the railroads that went out of business because they thought they were in the railroad business, and they were actually in the movement business, in the transportation business. So what kind of answers do we have here, Peg? So it looks like we got some folks focused on the new member onboarding, and that's absolutely a key place to park that energy. Okay, well let's keep moving along here. So I think one of the other areas that we want to help in the calling process is to give people a sense of where the conversation might want to go. And sometimes it might be useful just to start with what you're trying to recruit people for. And that means taking a look at your volunteer page. So in this case, the AALAS has a volunteer page where they're talking about what's the importance of volunteering, why you should volunteer, what are the opportunities that exist, and how do I volunteer? The number one reason why people don't volunteer is, Peggy?
They weren't asked.
They weren't asked, yeah. So,
and number 2 is they didn't know about it. I mean, that's the other real critical issue, right? So.
Yeah. So if we look at the volunteer form AALS has, they give you some sense of, okay, so, well, you got to be a member, right? We want people that are members. But this would be, if you thought of ADHA, what are the skills, expertise that you're looking for from the volunteers? And this could give you a sense of what kinds of questions do I want to ask people. And you could actually, if you're making the calls, you could have the form in front of you and sort of fill it out as you're or check off the boxes as you're going down there. And then that helps you in terms of the next step of, oh, gee, I've got a position to fill. Oh, I got somebody here who's interested in public outreach. I'll talk to them because they're someone who could be interested in that and could really bring something to the conversation.
And what I really love about this form, Peter, is that what AALS did, and the reason why we're showing this to you has a lot to do with the fact that if you're trying to figure out how to have a conversation, you can ask questions like, what is your dental hygiene passion, or what is the passion that brings you to this profession? When they tell you that, it really does help you get a really good sense of who they are and how you can connect with them, or how you can connect them to connect to folks. And when you ask someone, you don't start with what is the position I'm trying to fill, but what do you want to bring to this organization? You know, what do you want to use in the context of this chapter? All of a sudden, it changes the conversation and the focus is on the person. Awesome. So let's switch to number 2, okay? So number 2 is essentially put out the welcome mat. Now, I am talking about putting out the welcome mat on your homepage. I ran into this and totally love this. So this is a welcome video on the Sunshine State Romance Authors chapter website. Okay, so I am not a romance author. I'm just going to put it out there right now. But I was intrigued by this because on their homepage, this is in there, you know, how you can have a rotating slide or whatever. This is the rotating slide part. And it's not the most engaging necessarily, but it is really cool that I land on this site and I go, oh, look at this. Click. And I get a welcome. I get an understanding of what is this chapter about? How is it connected to the larger picture? And why would I be interested? And it really kind of pulls you in. Now, this idea of a welcome video, and this is a true action item for you guys, came actually from another organization who uses something called Powtoon. Now, Powtoon is a free and inexpensive tool you can get on the web. So go ahead and you can Google Powtoon and you can get it. It's a great little thing that allows you to do animated videos, which create awesome video presentations. And so you could actually come up with a script and you put it in here and it helps you build a really cool little video. I've seen a number of chapter-based organizations do this. Oftentimes they'll do it. The one I saw recently was actually to promote one of their events. But we know from an SEO perspective that if you have video, in particular, images secondarily, on a social media feed or on your website, you are going to get more traffic pointed there. So video becomes a great way for you to spread the word. If you did a really cool, little super simple Powtoon animated video that let people know what you have to offer them, or maybe it's one about, hey, all the ways you can get involved with the chapter, it's just going to create another interactivity on your website, and it's going to allow you to draw people in I think, some pretty cool different ways. So, action item for you, go ahead and try Powtoon. It's a pretty simple little software on the web that you can use. All right, Peter, number 3.
So number 3 is paint the picture. And this is where we ask somebody to volunteer, and way too often we'll say, hey, could you be on our membership committee? Or can you be on our bylaws committee? And everybody goes, oh, yes, that's me. I want to be on your bylaws committee, sure. I can't wait to spend Saturday and Sunday trying to figure out whether it should be shall or will in the bylaws. Now, I think painting the picture really goes to helping people understand not just what they will do, but why they will do it, and as importantly, how it will benefit them. way too often we underestimate the power of that benefit of learning new skills, of meeting new people, of making connections you didn't have before, of impressing people both on the job and off the job in ways that weren't you hadn't thought of. But I think most importantly of making a difference. And volunteers by and large want to make a difference. So we really want to paint the picture in a way they get a sense of how they can make a difference. So if we take a look at some of the examples here, well, gee, ADHA, it's got a wonderful sense of what are the opportunities and very specific activities that are people being called on to work on that tie directly back to the strategic goals of the organization. What's the mission and what are we trying to accomplish here? So a call for written testimony, and that's a really important thing for folks to work on, and they can see where, as a dental hygienist, I want to make sure that the regulations and the laws are giving me the best possible opportunity to be successful in my chosen profession.
And don't you love, Peter, the fact that they say involvement opportunities, not volunteer, which I really love. And I love the other part is that it says for projects that fit your interest, expertise, and schedule. I mean, I think that's just speaking to me as, I mean, okay, so how many of you are not busy? Yeah, I didn't think so. So that's a great way of getting me to kind of respond. So go ahead, Peter.
So if we keep going, I mean, we see that there are lots of different ways, and this is IEEE, and they are showing people not only and I talked about this before, not only are you're moving the mission and serving a cause, but you're developing your own personal skills. You're developing your teamwork skills, your management, leadership skills. If you're looking for a job, volunteering is the best way to find a new job, or be prepared to find a new job when life changes, which it usually does. And of course, improving your knowledge about the association to which you belong. And if you really want to get value from an association, the best way to get that value is to get involved, because you begin to see the inner workings, you begin to see how things are tied together, what's moving what and where and how. And so that there's a real win for everybody who participates as a volunteer in any association. And what I love here is all the cute little purple lines on there. But this is a description of volunteering activities, and you'll notice none of this. There's not once does it say be on the membership committee or on the bylaws committee. It's talking about things that you can do, and it gives you a fairly interesting description of what these things look like. And some are heavy lifts, and some are easy lifts. But if you think about, for example, the greeters, if you want to meet people, if you're somebody who likes to meet people, what a better way to do so, and to meet people in your profession, even better. If you're somebody who's got some technical chops, being a technical portfolio contributor, which, as it says, this is the fancy title just for submitting seminar topics. It's a fancy title, but it's also it has some weight to it, so it makes you feel, hey, I'm doing something that's making a difference. So these are all great examples of ways where we're not talking about being on a committee. We're talking about doing something that's going to make a difference for the organization, for the membership, for the mission, and yourself.
And isn't it cool, Peter? I mean, this is the part I love about it. It's the top 3 are micro jobs, right?
Yes.
The first ones out of the gate are these easy lift. And if you kept going down the list, and you guys can go, pull this up. It's an open URL, so you can go ahead and pull this up. They get more and more detailed. But I just love that those 3 right there are super, super simple, and they really are an opportunity to let people sort of test the waters. So what I want to do is, if Peter, if it's okay with you, is I want to share a couple of things that I found on the websites of many of the chapters here, because I think you guys are already doing some really cool stuff. So the one at the bottom was a little video showing, and it came from the Ohio group that did the Columbus Welcome, the Columbus Meeting Welcome last June. And I love this. They put this on their Facebook page. And it's really cool. It's a bunch of volunteers helping to stuff bags. That's a micro job. That's an opportunity to get involved. They did a quick call out and they got the folks. Then I love this one. This is actually the GTC dental hygiene students, and I'm one of the ADHA members from the Piedmont DHA. and they assembled about 50 Valentine's bags with numerous kind of like, personal items that they took to two women's shelters. Really kind of cool activity that engaged, what I love about this one, engaged the students with some professionals, right? And then I love the one at the top of the page because this is about Earth Day with family and friends, and it's the DC dental hygienist who did this great community service. You guys have lots of really cool opportunities, and as Peter is saying, the point is, do you have it on your website? Do people know that they can opt into these? Are you created a situation where people can see things and be able to connect with your organization? Now, I noticed when I went through a number of your websites and preparing for this, that a number of you have lists of some of the community service, but you don't list the other ways that I can get involved with your chapter to do other things. So please, I would say, if you have a beginning list, build it so people see, okay? 4, and Leanne, so you're not seeing anything on the screen. There was a blank slide as we went to a build. Let me know, please, if you're still seeing, if you're able to see this now. So number 4 is what I call is build community one like at a time. Now, I didn't have to go far to find out, to find some great examples that you guys are already doing in terms of building community. When I say building community, in this particular case, I'm really working at, is there a problem?
Yeah, I'm still seeing the description of responsibilities.
Okay, hang on a second. I just got a bing from my, I see what the problem is. Let's try. Hang on one second, guys. Stay with me in doing the, there we go. Is everybody seeing everything now? Okay.
I'm still seeing the old slide.
This is really strange. All right, hang on one second. Let's see if we can figure this out, folks. Just a second. Which one do I want? A little technical difficulty, but I brought the guy over here.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure, but I'll try one of them because. And go to slideshow.
How are we doing now, folks?
There we go. That did it.
Sorry, ADHO team.
That was
but we've got it now.
Action.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yes, give me those thumbs up so I can see it. I'm going to go back because I wanted to share in case you guys didn't see some of this. These were the 3 slides I just showed that demonstrated the really cool things that you guys are doing in terms of volunteering. At the top corner is that wonderful picture from the DC Dental Hygienist for their Earth Day. The large picture is that wonderful getting together with the students to do the Valentine Days We Love You bag for the women's shelters. And the bottom one was the wonderful welcoming committee stuffing the badges in Columbus. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, great. So, 4 is building community one like at a time. This is really about social media. And the reason why I'm suggesting this is that there's a whole lot of people who don't have the time to come out to your activities until they see that the activities are worth coming out to. So sometimes I need the education, or there's something I really, it's driving and everything lines up and I can do it. The rest of the time, I may just need to know that there's a community there. And what I really like about social media is it gives us the opportunity in a kind of a safe space. I know social media isn't completely safe, but work with me here. In a somewhat safe space, it allows you to be able to create conversations and let people lurk and learn a little bit more about you. And most importantly, it allows you to communicate with them, have a conversation with them. And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about building community one like at a time. Now, what I really love about this is that it's a great opportunity for us to build that conversation. And so what I want to do right now is launch our third poll here. And I want to ask you, before we get any further, what two-way communications are you using to engage members in conversation? So right now, are you using social media? Are you using polling? Are you using Q&A? Are you using emails? Maybe you're adding video to meetings. Maybe there's another. Go ahead and tell us how you are, in fact, creating conversation. So a number of you using social media, love that. Yes, you've got some emails, so keep bringing it in here. So what we're talking about here is that I'm a member. Being a member of community means that I know the people, or at least some of the people in the community, and not only do I know them, but I have a relationship that's built through the opportunity to chat with you. If we don't build that opportunity to chat, we can't expect people just to show up at our door. How many times do you go to a party to people you don't really know, right? So this is part of what we're saying when we build a two-way conversation. All right, so I got a number of people responding. Excellent. I'm going to show you what I got. So many of you are using social media. I think that is completely awesome. You can only check one, no problem. Type in the rest of the ones that you're using. At least a couple of you have used polls, many use email, you add video to meetings and other. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the social media part. Some of you are already doing this. I want you to chime in on the chat and let us know what you're doing. Okay. I showed this at a previous slide, and I just love both of these because this to me is a great example of creating conversation. So on our first one here, this is the first one is a video that was done at Christmas time, and I totally love this because it had a way of saying two things, saying, I'm president, hello, great to meet you, bringing her daughter in, and I don't know her daughter's name, but bringing her daughter in, yes, from Ohio, bringing her daughter in to show I'm a mom, I am a dental hygienist, and I happen to be president, and I really want you guys to be involved and engaged. And I love it. If you played it, it ends with a little girl saying, Happy Holidays. I mean, totally cool. Creates a conversation. I now know that I can reach out to her and say, oh my gosh, you have a daughter. I don't have a daughter. I have 3 boys. Tell me about the daughter, right? So it just creates this wonderful conversation. So that's a video that was loaded up on a Facebook page. That could be on your homepage too for a short period of time. It's creating that interaction. I love the fact that the DC Dental Hygienist. So this is their Facebook, their Facebook page, and this is the profile picture. Do you see? When organizations do a profile picture that's a logo, it just says to me this is an organization, and I don't want to join an organization, but I want to join those people. Don't they look great? I mean, I definitely want to join them. So creating a conversation is really about making sure you put the face and the voice forward. Let me show you a couple of other ones. I love the Michigan Dental Hygienist page. Look at this Facebook page. First of all, they have this awesome picture, again, really using the profile picture. Then look at all of these people that came to the conference. It's really cool, but this is what I really wanted to show you. They've got a lot of people that are liking and following this, right? So they're already building community. An example of that is that they received a question and they posted it and they got 13 comments. You know, this is where community is. Now, these people might not be able to get together, right? Or they may not get on a phone call, or they might not, come to a Zoom meeting. But here they are answering a question, showing that they care. Now, you might say 13 comments a lot. Well, actually, in Facebook territory, it is. So kudos. And I really like the fact that this was a conversation that they that they encouraged and nurtured. Now, they're not the only ones. I love the Maryland Dental Hygienists because they have another example. I would, tease them a little bit to say, put those faces up there. But what I really wanted to show you about this was this. They, the House Bill 738 passed. Check this out. I mean, I love this. 83 comments, 135 shares, okay? They're building community. That's what we're talking about, guys. We're just simply talking about an action item for you is go to that Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever's going to work for you. And maybe it's a blog on your website. But tap the power of building the community one like at a time. Lynn, I love it. You just sent the TDHA times to all. Just have emails for recapping the annual meeting. Excellent. It's really about reaching out and having that conversation. So a couple of quick things we talked about in the last webinar that I just want to kind of revisit for us here in terms of using social media. Hashtags. If you're going to use them, make sure they're easy to remember and easy to spell. Do a little bit of research. Make sure it's not something that's going to come up with some other weird things. You might want to build an incentive in it, like if you use this hashtag, let's say you're doing a meeting and you say, use this hashtag and we're gonna do a drawing at the meeting and give a gift card. So an incentive helps use the thing. Don't over hashtag and don't do a hashtag that is all caps, okay? Secondly, optimize your account bios. Put right in your bio the call to action. Put a hashtag if you want them to use it. Include your website, your website URL. 3, have handy for you, right? Bios, handles, pictures, video clips, logos, URLs. Have all of those things really very accessible. One of the things that we do with PRSA is we have a Dropbox, and in the Dropbox, particularly around key elements, like when there's a membership promotion or when there's a awards program or our big conference, we have a folder in there that we stow everything. Speaker bios, speaker pictures, a list of all of the handles for all of the speakers and key people that are going to be at that event. We include video clips. We include we do shortened URLs so that people can share stuff easily. Put all that up there so that all of our volunteers can use it, so that all of our planners can use it. It really allows us to make sure we're optimizing our social media outreach. And finally, and this is what I really liked about the 2 examples, and actually the 3 examples I showed from Ohio, from Michigan, and from Maryland, is 80% of the post should be informative, should be answers, should be free info, should be we're having a conversation. 20% is going to be to push an event or to push membership, right? Make sure that you're able to take care of those. All right. Let's talk about number 5. Peter, you're on.
Okay, so I guess I probably need to unmute my phone. No, I'm unmuted. There we go. All right. So this one is pretty obvious, right? Are we doing this right now? Is it happy hour? It's not a happy hour? This is not a happy hour? Is this a happy hour, Peggy?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So what's a happy hour? And we all get together and have some great conversations with each other, and somebody else buys the booze. Well, this happy hour, you have to buy your own booze, because we're talking about virtual happy hours, and the only booze you're going to have is whatever booze you happen to have in your wherever you are.
Right. Or it could be coffee, or it could be tea.
Or it could be coffee, that's right, or tea, or whatever you happen to be drinking. But they're wonderful ways for people to connect with each other. And I think the important part is to make sure you have a video element in the conversation, because seeing each other is really what this is all about. We're saying to folks, you don't have to get in the car and go someplace. And for a lot of folks, that's going to be an impediment because of time constraints, because of distance, because of any number of things. But technology today lets us get close to each other without necessarily getting in a car. And just as you can see our images today, and if all of you had your cameras running, we could probably see several of you, not all of you, on these cameras as well. So that's a great way to allow people to connect virtually and share conversation. And at the same time, they can be eating, drinking, whatever they happen to be doing at the moment. But the idea is the virtual happy hour. ASAE's young professionals have been doing these for quite a while, very successfully. And Peggy, why don't you tell us about the Take the Lead group?
Yeah, so I totally love this one. Thank you, Peter. This is a women's group, okay, and they do a virtual happy hour once a month, and they all of the topics are around accelerating your career. So it might be on developing a leadership skill. It could be on getting inspired. It could be on something around building your network. Sometimes one was on storytelling, one was on presenting yourself. What was really cool about about each and every one of these is that it is video stream, and it is they get someone to have a little bit of a conversation, and then they get everybody talking. And what I think is really cool, and the reason why Peter and I wanted to bring this as one of our 5 options, is because sometimes we're so focused on the face-to-face events. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have face-to-face events, but it would be kind of nice if once in a while you did something that members didn't have to come out, but they could still see each other face-to-face. They could still begin to build that community. And for the folks that can't get out, if I've got a couple of young kids, if I've got a very busy job, I got a parent, somebody else I have to take care of, right? It's, you're kind of juggling balls. So the actionable item is the virtual happy hour, because what it does is it allows you to reach out in a different way.
And you can use virtual technology to allow people to connect with each other, even when you're having a live event. It's certainly a way of helping them see what's going on and hear what's going on at the same time, even though they can't be there.
Excellent. All right, here's the bonus one. So we gave you 5, right? You've been listening. We talked about the phone tree. We talked about putting up the welcome mat with the video. We talked about the list. We've talked about building the community and the virtual happy hour. And here's a bonus number 5, number 6. Yes, volunteer love. This is National Volunteer Week. Did you guys know that? It's National Volunteer Week. And Peter, we're getting a little bit of feedback, they were saying on the chats. I think you've got 2 computers going there. National Volunteer Week. And the reason I want to bring this up is because there's just a few days left of National Volunteer Week. But here's the really cool thing that you can do in these remaining couple days is reach out to all of your volunteers, to your board, everybody who hasn't been here, send them a quick thank you note. It could be by email. It could be a gift. Find a really cool, funny, thank you gift. Send it out to your volunteers. Do something I just did for my PRSA volunteers. I did it on Monday. I went on and I created a post, and on the post I tagged all of my volunteers for PRSA. It was a long list. It's a long post, but I thanked them all in a tag and a shout out on LinkedIn. You've got Facebook pages. Tag your volunteers on your Facebook page. Take a moment right here and now to thank the folks. Now, I want to also take this moment to really thank you guys. To thank you guys because you are really the hearts, the souls. You're working so hard for ADHA. You're making a difference. You're making a difference in your day job. You're making a difference in this part-time job where you are a leader. And so I want to reach out and say thank you for being here and for making the time to be with us tonight. To help you out, and this is our gift to you, on the MarrierManagement.com resource, if you go to MarrierManagement.com and you pull down the blog, there is a blog post that says last-minute quick wins to celebrate National Volunteer Week. There is also a blog, which is Volunteering for Your Association Has Benefits. Now, I'm mentioning this one. Feel free to take that and lift the whole thing and put it on your website or your Facebook page or whatever to let your members know that volunteering for your chapter has benefits for them. This is a kind of, I call this really a gift to members to let them know that there's a true value for being involved with an organization. So that's kind of our kind of thank you to you, as we create these resources that we hope that you guys will be able to use and use freely. Everything we produce is produced under Creative Commons with the thought that if it gets used, it becomes useful. All right. We've given you 5 things to do. You can't do all of them. You might like just one of them. Maybe all you do is go do a quick volunteer love, #volunteer love, thank you to your folks. That's cool enough. You've given us a couple of brags. That's totally awesome. So the last thing I want to do is to really encourage you to shine. And I want you to shine in any way that you possibly can. So as we pull this to a draw, I love is that we've got about 10 minutes. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want to chat? Let's chat. It's been a great opportunity for Peter and I to be involved with you guys, to be here. But what questions are on your mind? We can use the chat, and I'm going to ask the lovely Kelsey and Jennifer if we can just open the line to see if anybody wants to just to ask a question live. All right. How do we connect the different generations? Tiffany, I love that question. That is like one of my very favorite questions. And the reason why I say that is because there's a misnomer that the different generations that the younger generations don't want to be involved in membership-based organizations. All of the research that we're seeing coming out on the millennials and now beginning to appear on the Zs is that they do want to join, but they want to join for different reasons. And there's really three really key motivations for Zs and for younger millennials to get involved with the organizations. The first is really, it's about being involved with the cause organization. They want to know that the organization is doing something to make a difference. And gosh, you guys really are. So it's kind of leading a little bit with the cause to get their attention. Secondly, is that particularly younger generations are looking for how do they take their career to the next level? How do they learn more? How do they get more experience? So the degree to which you can connect being involved in your organization to that need or that motivation, that hot button, it'll really help. But at the end of the day, understand that one of the things about the generations is there's a clear desire. Anybody who wants to be a dental hygienist really cares about this as a profession. I mean, they want to do it. They want to do it right. But depending upon your generation and the way you were brought up and the access you had to technology, your approach is going to be different. And what we don't always do is to make sure that we are available and accessible across the generations. So we don't always make sure that our web is up to snuff, that we're using social media, that our communications and our conversations are succinct and easy to read and easy to navigate. So when you say, how do you connect across the generations? I say it's about the conversation. And it can't start with me. It has to start with you. And there has to be an acceptance to the fact that you and I are going to probably communicate differently. I'm a boomer, and I love the phone, but I've gotten very lazy with the email. But if you talk to a number of young professionals that I've been involved with in the association field, they're on their mobile device, and so their connection is going to be oftentimes text. So make sure you're open to all of those communications, but start with, tell me about you. Start with the individual, and you will be able to connect across those generations. I love it. I love it. Hi, Laura. You started. Yes.
Unmuted. Oh, I was going to say I actually have unmuted Julie Abrahamson, so she is free to ask her question live.
Excellent. Hi.
Hi, I wasn't sure I had a question.
Oh, sorry. It showed that your hand was raised, so I unmuted you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I pressed that by accident.
No worries. Julie, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm really enjoying these webinars. They're very, very informative, and I really need all the help I can get.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we're happy to help.
Thank you.
Great.
So Peggy Sheridan was asking, the most common comment she hears is by potential members is why the cost and what do we get in return? So that's really all about the value proposition, right? That goes back to, I think, what Peggy was saying is if we start with the you, if we understand why someone or what someone as an individual is looking for, then we can frame that value proposition around their needs, not making this assumption that we know what they need, and therefore we give them a list of everything the association does, and they may not be interested in any of those things, or there may be one or two, but we've sort of hidden those in a big pile of other things. So I think that's where that notion of being very specific with an individual and understanding from their perspective what the need is, and then building the presentation of the value proposition around their needs is the way to go. And that usually helps address that issue of why the cost.
And it's really interesting is when someone says to me, and I've heard this a lot with the group that I manage, PRSA, they'll say, yeah, well, the cost, because you join national, then you join the local. And I always, before I say anything about the cost, I say, okay, well, why are you interested in PRSA? And I may have to probe a little bit. As soon as they tell me and I can understand what they're interested in, as Peter is saying, now I understand the value prop. And then I come back and I don't tell them everything they can get. I tell them exactly how they're going to get that answer. If you, Peggy, if you haven't, I don't know if you were on the webinar on helping members find their way, but we did walk through a 3-step process where we talked about asking the opening question and then connecting to a person, a resource, and an activity. Take a look at that. I think that might really maybe change the conversation a little bit and help you make that connection. Give that a try. Any other questions?
Michelle Bassi had her hand up as well, so I unmuted her.
Hi, Peggy.
Hey,
hi, Peter.
Hi.
Hi. I'm in Ohio. And first, thank you for recognizing the video that I posted. I was the one that took that video of everyone assembling for our giveaway bags at the conference.
I love that.
Cool.
So thank you so much. And I do love social media. I think it's a great way to give a live action of what's going on. And of course, our President Kim Moore, you recognize that video is very productive. I tell my people, just, give like a 60 to 90 second video of something. That's our attention span, and get the word out, make it present, make it current. My question for you, though, is the great idea of having the virtual happy hour. What kind of platforms do you recommend? We know there's Zoom, we know there's GoToMeeting, we're any one of those, but what is out and available that's free and something that would work for us at our level?
So Peggy's looking at me like I have the answer to this question.
You do.
Certainly products like Zoom and GoToMeeting are great ways to operate, but there are, if you pick up your cell phone,
yes,
Facebook Live, all kinds of tools are buried inside your phone that allow you literally to sort of you could have 3 or 4 people having a virtual meeting simply using their phones without you having to have a desktop here or somebody having a Zoom account or a GoToMeeting account or anything like that. There are lots of different ways to make those connections that don't necessarily strap you to a chair. And I think the idea is making sure that we're as flexible as possible and that we don't necessarily say, gee, we have to have 10 people or 15 or 20 people. If we have 3 people, we can have a great virtual get-together.
Yeah, so the first 45 minutes of Zoom is free, so you can get a free version of Zoom. And I've used my colleague who's done this a number of times. That's what they have used. But Google Hangouts is the other thing that a number of folks have used. And the very first virtual happy hour I was on was a Google Hangout. Free conference call now has video, so that's another platform that you can take a look at from a free perspective. I think that the The other element that we've used, that a couple people have used, is FaceTime, and another element is using the Skype. So a couple of different options for you. If you're going to host it and you want reliability, Zoom is usually pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, Julie Abramson just mentioned Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
Has video now.
You mentioned apps on the phone, though. Can you name any? I know you're naming just the typical FaceTime ones, or
right. Yeah, it just there are a number. I haven't used many of them. I've just sort of looked at I've gone to the Google Play Store because I'm on an Android machine, and I just sort of looked at what's floating around there. I didn't load all this stuff up and try it out, but it's a place where there's obviously a lot of interest in the marketplace, and so you have lots of app developers out there that are doing stuff. So I think the real key, more than anything else, is a common platform. Because if it's a platform where you only have a limited number of people on it, it's going to be hard to get them on there, which is the advantage of something like Zoom, because you can actually send out to people, hey, here's the link, click this link, and you can join us. They don't have to load anything on their system. You know, it has a self-loading process. So.
Right. And the other thing is Zoom works beautiful. And that's what I was going to say when you said app. I mean, the app that I use on my phone is Zoom for a number of meetings and different connection points. So that's the one, that's kind of my go-to. Google Hangouts used to be my go-to.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Conversation is good. This is how we learn and share. I know Julie said she's used Facebook Messenger, so there's maybe some of you guys have used other apps for those kinds of things. So type in and let's chat. Yeah, I mean, see, I think that to me the Zoom is such an easy platform. I have to say that we default to it. Anything else, guys? Excellent. You know, the conversation doesn't have to stop here, rather. You guys can continue to talk on your community. You can continue to share. Our goal in this series was to get you guys thinking, talking, trying, testing. What might work for one group may not work for another. So just play with this stuff and see what will make a difference for you in your chapter. When something works, share it. When something doesn't work, you know, also share that. You know, why didn't it work, and how can you make it work? So we have had a tremendous amount of fun with you guys tonight. Appreciate your patience with a couple of the glitches that we had on some of the software. Really hope for you that it's been fun. And again, thank you for being volunteers, particularly in this National Volunteer Week, and hope that you have a bright and shiny year ahead.
And Leanne, I look forward to the invite to the winery tour.
Awesome.
Thank you,
all
Peggy.
Absolutely.
This is Jennifer, everyone. Thanks so much to Peggy and Peter tonight for joining us. But Peggy, we appreciate that you did a great job on these webinars. And just a reminder for everyone that they're all recorded. So we send those out to everyone. So if you missed any of the earlier ones, you can go back and watch those. And I'm sure if you have any additional questions from any of them, you could forward those to myself or Kelsey, and we can route those to Peggy and get some answers for you. So thank you again, Peggy. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to everyone soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.